standing next to you if it's not tearing easily. And tears aren't easy. And the words that the immediate family says at this time are, and repeat after me, Baruch, Dayan, Emet. Blessed be the true judge. Amen. We may be seated, and we hope to find comfort.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we could please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Oh, say shalom mibromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Welcome. We are here today to remember and honor the life of Goldie Rosenberg. Goldie had a long, full life with many people who loved her. And today, in Goldie's honor, we are going to be sharing stories, sharing songs, sharing prayers. As I was thinking about Goldie's life, I wanted to start with a reading from Ecclesiastes. Goldie had so many seasons in her life. For everything, there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to discard. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. Goldie knew about the time to speak, the time to embrace, the time to be with. And today we mourn Goldie's loss and we celebrate her long life. Goldie was born in a small house in the Strawberry Mansion area of Philadelphia in 1929. She was the oldest of 4 siblings, a big sister to Ella, Aaron, and Marcia. Growing up, Goldie had a lot of friends and she was good at school. She got a good work ethic from her parents, and she started having part-time jobs at the age of 14, such as being the hostess of a Colonial Diner. During high school, she met her love, Sam, and they got married in 1949. They moved to Manayunk together and had Marla and Carol. As a mom, Goldie loved cooking. She was known for her Jewish apple cake, her barbecues, and her cookouts, and she was the person that the family called for recipes. Ella told me that she remembers wonderful family Hanukkah parties together. where all the parents would get all the girls the same present, and one year they got the girls all roller skates, and there was roller skating all around the Hanukkah party. Goldie embraced motherhood, and she was active in the PTA. With Sam, Goldie had a truly good life. Together they attended Broadway shows and burlesque shows. Goldie wasn't shy. Goldie and Sam shared a sense of humor, watching South Park every night. They vacationed to the Poconos with Samuel's brother, Richard. Richard was an illustrator, and Goldie connected with Tweety Bird, who she was holding just the other day when I saw her. Sam and Goldie loved to go to Atlantic City, where Goldie would always play the slots and always win the penny slots, walking away always consistently with a couple $100. Goldie loved bowling and continued on bowling leagues until her 80s. Goldie was active in the JCC in Cherry Hill. She worked in the election polls for many years. Goldie was an Avon lady and sold Avon products to her friends and family. And Goldie got a job as a writer for the Woodbury Times and wrote about community events. And her neighbor remembers her typing away on a typewriter, writing articles for the Woodbury Times. Goldie was a longtime member of Congregation B'nai Tikva Beth Israel, where she still has many friends, and where I met her 3 years ago when I came to this community. As Goldie got older, Goldie experienced losses. Goldie lost her beloved Sam 10 years ago, and 7 years ago, Goldie suddenly lost her beloved daughter, Marla. The losses were hard for her, and Goldie's health declined. She needed oxygen, and she was falling a lot. 6 years ago, she fell and lost her sight, and she couldn't live on her own anymore. So Goldie's grandson, Will, he moved in with her. Will told me that this is what his mother, Marla, and grandfather, Sam, would have wanted. Will and Goldie were quite the pair. Will embraced Goldie's age and quirks and took Goldie proudly out as his date to comedy shows, concerts, conventions. They loved all-you-can-eat crab nights. Goldie had introduced Will to comedy, taking Will to see George Carlin when Will was 18. 14, thank you. My goodness, 14. And keep correcting me. You know it so much better. It's good. 14. And Will reciprocated, taking Goldie and Sam to see Don Rickles for their 50th anniversary. And then more recently, taking his grandmother all over to see him perform comedy. Will and Goldie loved to visit the Funny Farm Animal Rescue in Mays Landing, where Goldie loved to feed the geese and donkeys. They returned to Atlantic City, and whenever Will went there without Goldie, he brought Goldie back fudge and saltwater taffy. Goldie also developed incredible bonds with her caretakers, Patty and Sharon, both of whom were like family to her. 3 years ago, when I arrived as the rabbi of CBTBI, I heard about Goldie as one of the old-timers. And Goldie made it time to sit down with me in my office, saying that she wanted to get to know me in anticipation of this day. And at the time, I thought, wow, this woman thinks ahead. She has a head on her shoulders. But after she left the meeting, I was not thinking about this day at all. I was thinking about her as a woman with spunk, her head firmly on her shoulders, full of life, comfortable with her oxygen tank, with a wiry, unexpected sense of humor, laughing, funny, and happy to make others laugh. Just over 2 weeks ago, Goldie went into the hospital to get a few things checked out. Maybe pneumonia, maybe she was anemic. A few days ago, when it was clear that Goldie had to go on hospice, Will worked hard to bring her home, where Goldie was surrounded by friends and family who loved her and got a chance to say goodbye. Goldie passed away peacefully early on Wednesday morning. Goldie left meticulous, detailed instructions for her passing, and for today, a final act of caring for her loved ones who she didn't want to burden. She wrote, "Take people out to lunch." And Ella and Will agreed that they will do this after COVID, maybe in honor of Goldie's birthday, and memories will just keep on flowing. Goldie is remembered as a loving sister. And today we are on the internet as well, and so her family in England can see us as well. She's remembered as a loving sister by her siblings, Ella, Aaron, here with us virtually, and Marcia. She is remembered as a loving mother by Carol and her son-in-law Ken. Goldie's remembered by her grandchildren, Will and Dave, Ben and Ilana, and their children. Goldie is also mourned by her loving caretakers who were like family, Patty Larson and Sharon Parsley. The borders of family didn't simply stop for Goldie, they just kept on growing. When I got together with Goldie and her friends and family at her bedside before she passed away, I asked her friends and family what were some of Goldie's favorite songs so we could sing them to her at that time. And I was told that Goldie often had a hard time falling asleep and that she would sing to herself as she was trying to go to sleep. And among her favorite songs to sing to herself was "Row, Row, Row Your Boat." And we sang that song to her as she was getting ready to pass on. And it's funny because at the time, "Row, Row, Row Your Boat" just seemed like a funny little kid song to sing, but the more I thought about it and Goldie, the more relevant it was to her and her life. "Row, Row, Row Your Boat," when you look into the lyrics, is about traveling through life and about knowing how you travel and rowing on that road. And Goldie certainly made her own path through life and certainly knew how to row. Gently down the stream, Goldie's outsides didn't always appear gentle, but one of the things that we talked about over the past few days is that Goldie was like a sabra, which is the fruit that many Israelis are compared towards. She was prickly on the outside and very, very sweet on the inside. So, even though her way of rowing didn't always appear gentle, it always was gentle. There was always gentleness inside. Her way of rowing through life. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The way that Goldie was able to enjoy life at different stages in her life, that she was able to embrace life, make life work for her, as opposed to working for life, is pretty remarkable. And life is but a dream. Life is fast. Even with a long life, Goldie knew that she had to pack it in, that life is worth savoring every moment. This song perhaps was not only comforting for Goldie, but perhaps she saw the truth in it. Goldie knew that life is what you make it, and Goldie chose to make her life full and vibrant. May Goldie's memory be a blessing, and if you will, indulge us and sing with me, "Row, row, row your boat." Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. I'd like to invite up her grandson, Will, to share a couple of words.
Hi everyone, both here and on the internet. A lot of you have obviously known my grandmother much longer than I have, which is only 34 years. I know a lot of you have grown up with her, whether being siblings or just living on the same street and playing. I got, obviously with family, there are some problems over the course of time, but between 6 and 7 years ago, when I moved in with her to help her with her health and everything, I realized she was still active mentally, all there, even though her body was not how she wanted it to remain. She was still kicking around the house with the walker. She didn't have trouble in the house, even though she did have that one issue when she fell and lost her sight in her eye. I'd wake up in the morning, make sure she's still okay, come home from work, and there'd be a nice steak dinner waiting for me. Different baked chicken and fish. She always made sure I was well fed. And I never asked her to do that because I knew it would be difficult for her, especially since cooking with an open flame meant she'd have to take her oxygen off and leave it in the other room. So there was a whole other logistical thing we had to worry about. And, when her good eye started to not be so good anymore, it was fairly recently, thankfully. She'd watch TV instead of from her chair. She'd be next to the TV on the sofa, and she'd ask me, "What's good on tonight?" So I don't know, the usual stuff isn't very good, but let me introduce you to some of my favorite things, which a lot of you might not agree with me. I'm a big horror movie fan. Specifically from the 50s to the 70s with Vincent Price and Boris Karloff, the good actors. So we had movie marathons. Every night we watched old British horror movies. I introduced her to Breaking Bad. She loved Breaking Bad. She loved Better Call Saul. To the point where she had this big crush on one of the main actors who played this drug henchman named Gustavo Fring. And a couple months ago, I got to meet that actor at a convention in Atlantic City. My grandmother wasn't up to going, so I went. I told the gentleman that my 93-year-old grandmother had a gigantic crush on him. So he told me to pull out my video camera, and he recorded this great video for her and signed a free autograph, which would have been around $80, but he gave it to her for free. I'm trying not to hit the bullet points that the rabbi hit. I go away on weekend excursions to Charlotte or Williamsburg, Virginia. I write books. I do stand-up, so I travel around. And I wasn't just going to leave her home alone. I took her with me. I made her as much of a part of my life as I could, considering she made me a part of her life, having me move in. I wasn't just going to leave her at home or find another caretaker or something, even though people would step up and say, I'll stay with your grandmother. No, I wanted her to experience my life, because even though her age was advancing, her mind was still sharp. She had a great sense of humor. I introduced her to many friends of mine from around the country, and even though she probably didn't remember their names, she left a gigantic mark on every single person she met, which all of you can obviously tell just from knowing her. And I'd always post our adventures on Facebook, and she gained a legion of fans on Facebook that way. And even people that she never met loved her deeply. And when I told her I wanted to try to start doing stand-up comedy again, she said, go and do it. I started hosting an open mic night in Williamstown every Thursday, and she wanted to go. So all right, I brought her oxygen, brought her wheelchair, and took her to the brewery in Williamstown, where some of you might not be surprised, she enjoyed several of their beverages. And she loved it there. She went every Thursday, as often as her health would allow, and she would heckle the comedians And these aren't professional comedians. They're people like me trying to work out this stuff. And she's heckling them. She was a blast, and I'm going to miss her. And I should also include that she loved Quentin Tarantino movies. I'm going to miss everything. As the rabbi said, in her final wishes, she was so meticulous. Call Goldsteins. Call these people. Tell the rabbi what time. Take everybody to lunch. She gave me a long list of names that I had to call, of her friends and family, just to keep them updated. And she said, take everybody to lunch. Somewhere in the middle of the list, take everyone to lunch. Then at the very end, it says, take everyone to lunch. She wanted to make sure that everybody was fed, and with COVID and everything, I knew it would be difficult today, especially since it's Christmas Eve and not a lot of people could be here in person. So sometime around her birthday, which is in July, I actually looked at the calendar. July 16th, her birthday is a Saturday. And I want to gather as many of you that would be able to go, and as many of the people watching, and I'd love to bring everybody to her favorite Chinese buffet and buy lunch for everybody. Even though she won't be there in person, she'll be there in spirit with the rest of us as we continue to celebrate her, which is something I'll do for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you. We will all remember her in so many different ways at so many different times. I'd like to invite us to take out our books, and there's a poem in the middle that you can read with me. We remember her. We remember her at the rising of the sun and at its going down. We remember her. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. At the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember her. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember her. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us, as we remember her. As long as we live, Goldie, you will still live, for you are now a part of us, as we remember you. We're going to turn to Psalm 23 on the back as we remember and we share comfort. Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The Hebrew word for funeral is levaya, which means accompaniment. And today, we accompany Goldie's spirit as it unites with the divine. Soon, for those who wish, we invite anyone who would like to join us to accompany Goldie's body as it unites with the earth. As we unite Goldie's body with God, we pray. Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Goldie Bat Shmuel V'Chaika, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. El malei rachamim shochen bamromim hamitzei minucha nechona tachat kanfei ashkina amkaroshi v'torim kizohar harakia mazirim et nishmat Golda Bat Shmuel V'Chaika shalcha li'olama Balarachamim yastira b'tseter konfega le'olamim Vayitzror b'tzoror hachayim et nishmotaya Adonai v'nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Before we conclude the service today, as I mentioned before, everyone is invited, if you would wish, to follow us to the cemetery, where we'll have a short graveside service, and we also will gather online and online on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock in honor of Goldie. So we'll gather then to share memories and share blessings and share comfort.
Will the pallbearers please step to the center aisle? And I'll ask if we can rise once more, please.